Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 12 Days of Copilot. It's great to have you with us again. I'm Scott Frappier, Chief AI Architect here at Stoneridge Software, and I'll be your host and presenter for today. Today's session, An Agent to Assist, is focused on getting you started with Copilot agents. We'll look at practical ways that these AI tools can handle repetitive tasks, streamline processes, and really make your day to day work a lot easier. I'll share some examples and use cases to help you see how agents can become a helpful part of your team. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to go ahead and basically share my screen here so we can do this live as we go through this. So I'm going to take my entire screen, share it, and you should now see hopefully my screen, which has my Copilot chat enabled by default. Now, what we're going to show here today really is going to be the agent experience that you can interact with to really make your business chat interactions even more pointed. And in the future here, we're going to be talking about some of the new features that are going to be coming into obviously these agents, such as automated actions that agents can take as a part of obviously that deployment. Now, an agent is really something that focuses a large language model or copilot around a topic or conversation piece that you want it to really evolve around. And what do I mean by that? Well, you can have agents, for example, that focus on HR type activities, or an agent that is your scheduling agent, for example. And these agents allow you basically then to interact basically with Copilot at that level for that content. So, just as an example here, on my particular Copilot chat here that we have, or business chat, what I can do is I can open up my panel on the far right to then show some of the additional agents that I can add, or even some of the recent chats that I'm interacting with. Now, to create an agent, it's pretty easy. Number one, if you already know that the agent exists, for example, in the marketplace, what you could do is you could actually click on this Get Copilot Agents action as an example inside of here. And then what you should be able to see is all the different types of agents that are being introduced then into the Copilot environment that you could actually deploy inside of your tenant. So, as an example here, if you wanted to have a career coach that would help you, for example, identify different types of skill gaps and personalized advice that you could then use to help you with your career, well, what you could do is you could actually go into really those agents and you could click on the add action to then have then this agent exposed inside of your agent space inside of business chat. So on the far right here, as you can see, after I clicked on that Get Copilot agent and I added that career coach, that now I can work on things like developing a career development plan, for example. And really what we've done here is we've really focused then the content or the action of the actual large language model or Copilot in this example to be much more focused around some of those career activities that you may need to tackle. Now, the really cool thing about agents is the fact that you can actually build on top of these agents as well and make your own custom agents, right? So let's go through that process so you can understand and see exactly what we can do to create an agent then inside of M365 Copilot. Now, as an example here, I'm going to click on then my create agent. And what we're going to see is that it's going to pop up with a bunch of different conversation topics that I can then drive as I interact basically with this Copilot agent. So, as an example, I may want to use an existing agent that pops up. So maybe I need, for example, a prompt coach that teaches me how to actually do better prompting, for example, when I'm interacting with Copilot or any large language model for that matter, or a writing coach to help create more content off of maybe summary information that I provide to get more detail, for example, to do content generation. So these are some examples of templates that you can use that you could do the get a agent action, right? And then you could even add those into your environment. Now we're going to tackle this like basically we don't have an agent set up for it. And I'm going to pretend that I need a business central coach or agent to help me with the deployment, configuration, and maintenance really of the business central solution. So how would I do that? Well, pretty easy here. What I would do is I would start off by clicking on that create agent action. And you can see basically I have a prompt here that says, hey, I'm here to help you. What would you like this agent to do? So what I could do is say, I would like to create an agent that allows me to ask questions about the Business Central solution. So that way it can provide implementation, development, and support information to me and my team, as an example. And I'm going to go ahead and press play to that so that it actually takes that detail. And what we're going to see is that Copilot Studio here, which is embedded now inside of our M365 experience, is going to go through and then basically start guiding us through the setup of this particular agent. So you can see now the agent is set up. Let's decide on a name. So we call it the Business Central Assistant. And I can say, yes, that name sounds perfect, right? As an example. And I'm going to leave that typo inside of here because one of the things I want to relay really when it comes to these large language models is the fact that typos are okay. The intent of what the actual conversation is typically picked up even with minor typos that you may be interacting with. So here we can see that name sounds perfect. Great. It's been updated. We can see it says the Business Central Assistant is at the top here. So let's give some instructions on what to do with it. So what specific aspects should be emphasized or avoided in the agent's responses? So as you are an agent that is asked of information, please make sure that your responses are factual and honest, right? Make sure that the content is verbose and try to relate any specific business case examples that you have regarding that question so we can align the functionality to the business process requirement, right? And you could go further than this. You could add additional content around it. You could make it more formal, more casual, right? You could do different styles. You could say always act like a certain actor in terms of what the response would be if you want to have some fun with it. So it allows you basically to start framing then when this agent is interacting with you, what's that personality that you really want that agent to exhibit as you go through that interaction. So you can see here, I'm basically going through and then defining basically what that detail is going to be, that it's factual and honest. Would it like it to be friendly, formal, and I'll say friendly and technical because we want a mixture of them as a part of it. So now we're basically using the communication style preferences that we defined for it. And then finally, what we can see here is that we now have that chat dialogue created in the far right of our screen that allows us then to even interact with this large language model as well. So what I could do here is I could start interacting then and testing this as we go through this. So I could ask a question very simply about this agent then. As an example, what are the typical implementation phases that we would go through when implementing the Business Central solution, right? So let's say you're a customer and you're starting to learn more about Business Central because you're going through the deployment of the actual product. Well, what you can see here is that there are different stages that typically you go through for the deployment of a particular product. And really, they do align even with like Stoneridge's proven process as an example, where, for example, we'll do analysis, you'll do design, you'll do your development, you'll test that development, you'll deploy the product, and then finally you'll provide that go live support and then obviously that continuous improvement to keep on updating and increasing the capabilities obviously of the Business Central solution. And what you could do is you could say things, so we're planning to implement the general ledger functionality as an example. Can you identify what we should be analyzing and planning for the first phase in order to cover that functionality, right? So you can ask questions then of the implementation process, for example, where, for example, it's telling you you should be looking up some of the business requirements that you should be tackling here. You should be aligning with your chart of accounts. You should start talking about dimensions, right? And what you could then do is even go further than this, right? So what are financial dimensions, right, as a part of this? And we can actually then interact even with typos, as you can see, where it defines then all the different aspects that financial dimensions tackle inside of our solution. So it's a really cool concept to be able to create these different types of agents, potentially for any type of a topic that you want to tackle. As an example, maybe you have an implementation specialist agent that helps you identify, for example, data that you can interact with and formatting around that data, or questions around that implementation process. Or maybe you have an HR agent that you then take and embed, for example, inside of Teams or inside of your chat to interact with. You've got a lot of different possibilities here that you can drive with that. And here's the thing I really want to kind of just highlight as a part of this. When I click on the create action, what's going to happen is it's actually going to have this agent then exposed in our M365 chat. So we then have access basically to that agent then from that chat experience. And what we can also do is then copy, for example, that detail, or even go back to that agent to see now that I have my Business Central Assistant agent that I can then interact with as a part of it. Now, the really cool thing about this is really candidly, if I go to Copilot Studio, is the fact that even creating agents, for example, inside of your M365 experience over here, actually adds then into Copilot Studio, so that if you have different types of agents and bots that you create and interact with, then they're going to be accessible then from Copilot Studio, so you can do further things with these agents. As an example inside of here, when we look at our Copilot for M365, the agents that are going to be generated then for that will show up inside of your agent section inside of here. And then from there, you can add then even additional capabilities basically to the Copilot Studio based interactions, where I can, for example, add different types of actions, for example, that can interact, for example, with weather or with flows or automate or with Dataverse as an example. And you can even then add additional knowledge-based repositories, where if you have SharePoint, for example, with some internal data that you want to then use inside of this particular Business Central Assistant as an example, you can also then configure that then obviously then from the knowledge-based capability inside of here as well. So it just provides a plethora of options for you to really drive that capability. And one of the final things I want to note here is the fact that these agents are going to allow as well in the next wave that's coming for you to have an actually automated event occur, meaning when you actually set up an agent, you can set it up as unattended, so that when a particular event occurs, that the agent will then take that event, such as an email that you received that maybe then needs to create an opportunity. Well, you can tell it exactly what you want it to do in those situations using natural language, and then those automated actions with the automated agents will then occur using this same type of framework. So big thing here to note, if you haven't played around with agents, jump into it right now, because you're going to see more automation that's going to be involved with these agents longer term as well. Now, with that, let's go ahead and come back here real quick. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, which should then bring our particular presentation back up, where we're going to go through on the 9th day of Copilot. What are we giving away? Well, today we're going to be giving away a Nordic Sherpa extra long heated blanket. And I will tell you, my wife would absolutely love this, especially in these northern climates where it's nice and chilly. It's fantastic to have a heated blanket, and it's something that you don't really think of until you're cold, right? So today, though, the winner of the blanket is Katie Delaska. So hopefully, Katie, I did not butcher your last name at all here. Please, like I said, feel free to reach out. I know Bree will reach out to you as well, Katie, but congratulations on winning that wonderful heated blanket as a part of that. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up. So first and foremost, thank you again for everyone that's attending these sessions. We're trying to make obviously small little snippets that you can see and interact with, so that maybe you can come up with an idea to use that inside of your environment. Now, for tomorrow, for day 10, we're going to be covering security made simple by using or focusing on best practices, secure collaborations, and permissions, and the simplification of that, so you understand how obviously that impacts Copilot. With that, just a huge thank you again for everyone that's attended, and we look forward to tackling more, obviously, with 12 Days of Copilot, with day 10 tomorrow, with the security made simple. Have a great one, and we'll see you tomorrow. There's a chat question. 1 second, real quick here. I'm going to come back on. It looks like Alex had a question. I apologize. Thank you, Bree, for catching that. Do you know when the automation piece is launching? That is a fantastic question, Alex. I do not have the GA date. I will find out and post that in the chat here in just a second, but it's going to be pretty soon here in terms of where the public preview is going to be, because Ignite is where it started. So I'm assuming we're going to start seeing that roll out pretty soon here, but I'll answer it in chat in just a second here as well, Alex. So thank you.